in a deal that saw City First Bank of DC merge with LA-based Broadway Federal Bank. The new lender has over $1 billion worth of assets under management. It aims to finance affordable housing and small businesses as well. Joining me now is Brian Argrett, President and Chief Executive Officer of City First Bank of DC. Brian, thank you so much for being with us. So what will this merger mean for low-income banking, do you think?
Yes, well, first of all, thank you, Zane. It's a pleasure to be on the show this morning. This merger of equals is extremely important because we're bringing together two strong, long-standing financial institutions in their respective markets, as you said, in Washington, D.C. and Los Angeles, really to build a stronger organization, an organization that can provide increased levels of capital to low and moderate income communities and communities of color.
You know, we're seeing, Brian, protests happening across the country. You know, Black Lives Matter has become a real issue in this country, and the spotlight is really shining on it at this moment in time. How important are Black-owned banks and Black financial empowerment in the Black Lives Matter era?
I think it's absolutely critical. And again, I think this combination is critical in both demonstrating our ability to come together, build something stronger in the collective, in a unification that is both symbolic and that also delivers to our underlying communities. It's critical in a time like this. Economic justice is important.
So what have you done in terms of how have you invested in sort of equitable economic development, and you know, what should be done overall in this country to really level the playing field financially for Black people?
Yes, well, let me start with a statistic that I think might be very interesting, Zane. If you look at pre-pandemic levels, and you look at my hometown of Washington, D.C., where City First Bank is located, there's a wealth gap that is dramatic. Literally, you have 81 times the wealth in white households as you have in African-American households. And so let me translate that. That's 284,000 in net worth, if you will, the balance sheet, if you will, of a family for a white family. And for a Black family, that number is actually $3,500. And so what that means is, and for a Latino family, that number, Latino Hispanic family, that number is $13,000. So the difference, the dramatic challenge that presents is really a resilience for that family entering into a pandemic or even in normal times. And in fact, also the difficulty of funding the balance sheet of a business. So really inadequate or a large differential in wealth translates into a reduced ability for opportunity. But to your question, what can be done? Community development financial institutions and Black-led banks, Black-led businesses are critical in closing that gap and providing wealth and capital so that we can, in the collective, uplift our community.
And in terms of, you know, at the sort of government level, just in terms of, you know, passing another stimulus bill, I mean, how should resources be allocated within Black communities to make sure, I mean, you know, things have gotten far worse in this country during this pandemic in terms of the differences between Black income and white income and which communities are suffering the most job losses. So what could be done on a governmental level, especially with stimulus, to make sure that Black people in this recovery are not left behind?
You're right on point, and really government has to play a critical and central role in really addressing what is a systemic issue. I'll point out, for example, the Paycheck Protection Program, which is PPP, which was part of the government stimulus effort to uplift small business, unfortunately did not reach the African-American community in the manner for which it was intended by its own writing. So 95% of African-American businesses were unable to access this stimulus money. Now, I'll contrast that, and for a reason. At City First Bank of DC, just for example, as a community development financial institution, over 40% of the PPP money that we were able to put into the community was specifically directed towards African American business owners as well as African American led nonprofits. So my short point is it's very important to have community-based institutions that are resilient, that have relationships within the community, that have a long-standing commitment to the community, and that have the resources to invest in that community.
Yes, CDFIs have become that much more necessary, especially given the pandemic. Brian Argrett, President and CEO of City First Bank of DC, thank you so much.